How are you? Hey, we're back. How are you? I hope everybody's well. And we've every week we've made it through another week in this climate. But I want to just say thank you for everybody who is who's coming on right now. So I want to say thank you to all of you. And I want to say welcome to Ambassador Digital Magazine. I'm Musa Jackson. And, at this time, we always, even though I don't hear it right now, I think we used to hear it a little bit more frequently. We always give a shout out to the essential healthcare workers that are actually still, still dealing on the front lines at the hospitals and healthcare facilities in regards to what is happening, even though, hey, Crystal, how are you? Hey, Derek, how are you? Stephen, I'm going to try and get to this opening. I wish I was well-versed as a David Letterman, but bear with me, guys. Once again, it's really, saying thank you to our essential healthcare workers. We still are in the midst of a pandemic. So even though we're opening up in New York City, I still say, wear those masks, social distancing. I was up in Harlem and I know the bars and the restaurants, they have the outdoor cafes and a lot of the businesses are conducting business that way. But once again, let's just try and, protect each other and make sure that, that we are protecting, that we're looking out for one another. So I just want to say that. Hey, Angelique. Also want to say a big shout out. So there's a lot going on. I want to get through this before we bring on our amazing guest. I want to say happy 59th birthday to my big sister, Phyllis. We call her Lainey. I love you so much. She is totally a part of the reason why I am who I am today. And also happy early Juneteenth. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. And I hope everybody knows what Juneteenth is. Juneteenth is extraordinarily important to America, to all of us, but specifically to Black people. It was it is the official day of freedom for us when we were freed, freed from slavery. And I say official because we were actually free 2 years prior to that in 1863, but not all the states had gotten word. So by the time, can you believe that? Okay. So 2 years go by and other states are free. And by 1865, June 19th, in the state of Texas, which actually my father's from, was the official day. So to me, Juneteenth is our 4th of July, as far as I'm concerned. So, with that said, in this country and talking about freedom and talking about things that are happening, I just want to say, I'm on social media. You know how I feel about this. I've been a lot of lynchings going on, and I see how law enforcement and news and even medical examiners are calling them suicides. I'm just not buying it. And I'm speaking for a lot of us. I want a full investigation. I don't believe we go ahead. Hello, Shelley. I don't believe we would lynch ourselves on trees or in front of schools. Now, I don't think a teenager is going to do that, even if that's what the medical examiner. So don't take one word for it. We are behind you, that you get a full examination, full second, third, fourth opinion. Okay, I say that. I can't believe it all happened within a week. So there you have that. That's how I feel about that. And I also want to say, of course, this program is dedicated to all the fathers out there. I know so many fortunate, so many good fathers out there. A lot of good friends, and you keep doing what you're doing. And this is your week up and past that, up to Father's Day. So we wanted to make sure that we send you, hey, Myron, how are you? That we send you a big shout out to you, because you are doing, Patrick, Riley, how are you? That you are doing it. Your children, our children, you know, are the most important things in our lives, and so are you. And the Black father, I just want to say that specifically, is not a phenomenon. Okay, this is who we are, and the media is just catching up. How about that? So, and also, you know, we're talking about fathers. I know how I was going to get through this one, but two fathers in particular will not be spending Father's Day physically with their children, and that's George Floyd and Rashad Brooks. As we know, they were murdered at the hands of police officers. And, you know, as a father, as a Black father, I could not get through tonight, even though I wanted all, you know, to celebrate. I always want to unite, get through tonight without sending my heartfelt prayers. You know, as the Harlem ambassador, I'm sure I speak for, I can say I speak for Harlem in saying that we are united with the families in seeking justice, and that their children will know that they are loved even now by our community. So I'm sending that love to the families and to them. Also, I want to send a little shout out to if she's watching, Jillian Hervey. It's her birthday tomorrow. I saw it on social media. So she's a Juneteenth baby, and we want to just send her a shout out. I hope you have an amazing birthday. I love her. She's an incredible, talented young lady, and that actually leads us into the guest, the star. He is, what can I say about our first guest? He is, first off, he's an entertainment manager and brand consultant. He is been a publicist. He is a publicist, been a publicist. He's a music supervisor, film and TV producer. He has worked with, we're talking about stars. Well, he's worked with about everybody in the universe, if there's stars out there. I wonder who he has not worked with. But he is an amazing person. He's an incredible friend, if you're fortunate enough to call him a friend. He is an awesome dad. They call him Cool Dad. Handsome as hell. And he is our Ambassador Magazine, digital magazine cover star, my dear friend, Ramon Hervey II. Welcome. Hey, Ramon. How you doing? Look at you.
How you doing?
Swag.
Hey, you know.
You never disappoint when I see you.
It's nice to join you in your new venture, and I like your intro.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Going on.
Not, you know, hey. Oh, hey, there's your daughter. Hey, Jillian.
Hey,
Happy birthday. Just want to say thank you so much for being here, being on the show, Ramon. You know, I'm a lucky man. I'm a lucky dad as well. I love my two children. You know, my ex-wife is actually watching. She's one of my best friends, Crystal, Jade, Elijah. I love you guys. But I was thinking about when I was putting together, we do the calendar, and I was thinking about Father's Day, which sometimes it's like, you know, hey, we're out there. We're that holiday or that day. You know, we're going to get pie. We might get a bottle of wine. You know, hopefully we'll get, a breakfast in bed or something. But, you know, we realize because of Mother's Day, that's the day. But, you know, there's so many great fathers out there. When I thought about someone, and even though you have get into are just mind-boggling, even to me, who's been in entertainment for a long time, I thought about a father, and I said to myself, when I think of Ramon, I think of a dad, because that's how I know you. And beautiful picture of your kids. And there's Jillian, Melanie, your firstborn, and Devin, your son. And there's Sasha. So I see her. And so I just want to say, so when I was thinking of the cover, I said to myself, it's Ramon. Besides your incredible story that you have, so I welcome you on our show, representing fathers, because you represent us well.
Thank
you. You do.
Dad. I enjoy being a dad. It's the greatest gift that I've been given in life, as far as I'm concerned. So I treasure it. I adore all my kids. I have fabulous children, and I love them dearly. So they've given me brought so much joy and love into my life. It's just
look at that. Do you see the photo?
Yeah, that's one of my.
There's your babies.
They don't do that anymore, but
I know. Can't we keep them that size though? We can, huh?
No. But they're all. They're just all.
I just love it that when I saw that, and I totally can relate to what you're saying. And so why don't we do this? So we got a lot to cover on the show. Why don't we go back? Let's just go back. So let's start off, as a kid growing up and everything. I know how close you are with your family. So talk a little bit about that for us, what that was like growing up.
I was brought up in a family with 5 children. I'm the oldest son. I have an older sister and a younger sister. And I have 2 brothers, but both my brothers have passed away. One was a graduate of West Point, my youngest brother, George. He died in a car accident in Bremen, Germany back in 1980. So he's been gone for quite a while. He was only 24 years old. And then my other brother, Paul Hervey, he died last year. It's been about a year since he passed away. He had some... his organs started to break down. So I think he had a very bad case of the flu, but then it turned into pneumonia, and then it was just a downward spiral. So unfortunately, I'm the only male left in my family. My father has also passed away, but I have a mother who's 93 years old, who's in really great shape. She lives in California. I have 2 sisters that are still with me. They live in California as well. All 3 of them live in LA. But, I grew up with, my dad was in the service. My mom worked in the retail business. And I always felt that it was us against them. I told them if I ever write a book, it's going to be called 5 Against 2. I always felt like we as children formed our own unity. I had a lot of fun growing up. I mean, there were some rough times. I didn't get along with my father, to be honest. We never had a great relationship, and that continued, until he passed. But at the same time, you just do the best with what you have. So I learned a lot from my family, my parents, and I think sometimes when you don't end up getting the type of relationship with your parents that you aspire to have, it also gives you an opportunity when you get to be a parent to do something for other people that you didn't have. So to me, I tried to turn a negative into a positive, and it encouraged me to be the father that I've been trying to be, throughout my life with my children.
I guess we learned, that's a beautiful photograph of your family. And we see your beautiful ex-wife, Vanessa, who you're very close with. And that's Vanessa's mom, right?
Yes, that's Vanessa's mom, Helen.
Oh, wonderful. And by the way, Vanessa Williams, thank you so much for joining us. I saw you. Hi. And hi. Yeah, Pooh. Calls you Pooh. Is that your nickname?
No. Prue is actually my mom's nickname. And for the kids.
Mother's nickname. Oh, okay. I was just like, that's adorable.
Her real name is Winifred. But my kids call her Prue, and they call Helen, who is Vanessa's mom, they call her Gaga.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love, I come from a similar dynamic. You probably don't know that there's 5 of us as well. And older sisters in my case. And then a strong mom, as my lead. Me and my dad was not there. I was pretty much raised in a weird way by really strong male figures in my life.
Mhm.
From men in the community, which they have all since passed on, but they really helped me understand a lot about just life, and some of them picked up the slack. I love this picture of your daughter Melanie, if your first child.
No, that actually is Sasha.
Is it Sasha?
Yeah, that's Sasha. She's actually Rick and Vanessa's child,
Oh
but
wow.
she's like a 4th child to me. I love her dearly.
Okay. Wow.
We have a great relationship. She took to me and I took to her from the time she was born. She used to request to come over to my house to hang out. And I've always had a great relationship with her.
Hey, what's up, Chet? Listen, I love, what I love about that, this whole dynamic is like, I have an incredibly great relationship, as you know, with my ex-wife, Crystal, and sometimes, how things work. And I love that's things I always was just like with you is just, and I think maybe even other men out there who have children and have had a, close relationship with their wife, and they might not be together, that way, but they, how they can co-parent. How is that for you? It seems like it's always worked out. How has that been for you guys as co-parents of your children?
It's been interesting, but it's also been very successful. I'm proud of the way that we, co-parented.
Nice.
We have a dysfunctional family. Obviously, she has a couple of husbands after me. I never remarried. What I love about her is that she's a great mom, and we've always been able to put our kids first. We never compromised, or whatever problem we had with each other. We didn't make our children victims. We showered.
You kept that away from your children. Saying.
Pardon?
I'm saying whatever you guys would go through personally in terms of, sometimes we have those tensions as adults.
What I was meaning,
exactly. What I'm saying.
Right. You don't make your children victims in a situation. You put them first. And I think that we've always been able, to do that. And, when you first start off, when you get divorced, whatever, it's a little chilly. And you have to work through it. And I think at one time, we were it's almost like you can turn your kids into possession, like your time, her time. And we did that in the very beginning, but then we shuttered that and we were able to kind of work through, and we started doing a lot of, interactive family activities so that we wouldn't have to split up our time. But the thing that I'm most proud of is the way that for me, we didn't battle in court, and we decided from the outset that we were going to have mutual custody of the children. And so we worked out a system where every Monday and Tuesday she would get the kids, and then Monday, Tuesday she would get the kids. Wednesdays and Thursdays I would get them, and then whoever had the weekend would get that Friday. Their whole development as children, we kept this. We're both in the entertainment business, so sometimes it would go off kilter a little bit, but we continue to try to keep a system so that the kids would rely on us and know that they could count on us, and they started to know when they would be with us, and I think that was a really big part of having trying to make the most out of dysfunction. The idea of us, when I got married, I wasn't planning on getting divorced, it just happened, but you can still overcome. When you're a parent for life, regardless of whether you're married or not. And I think that's been our motto, was to be both good parents and be supportive of each other. And in that respect, I think we've been very successful.
Absolutely. I see that you guys have been extremely successful. in that, a lot of people tend to use children as pawns. And I think that that's where we fall apart. But the good part about what you guys did was realize that you're a team, and that the kids come first. And I was like, I just have to say that, put that out there, because we have to realize that our children look up to us, and that they look to us for guidance, and that we just have to kind of keep that always as the center, that, what we do, they're looking towards us. But I want to talk about, if we're going to move a little bit in terms of, as a father, prior to being a dad, you had this incredible, you still have the career, but prior to being a dad and being married, you started in entertainment. Let's talk about your first gig. When did you step into the entertainment industry? How, what, when, where? What were you doing?
I got in the entertainment industry in London, England, actually. I was a flight attendant for Pan Am Airlines, and I was based in London. So I was flying all over the world, and I got laid off a couple times in the same year. When I originally decided to become a flight attendant, I thought I would just do it for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I was having a lot of fun. It was a great job back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I got to see the world, and that was something that I was really thankful for. And it really opened my eyes up to so much more. At those days this is in the 70s. Everything was still, it's kind of funny to say it now, but it was very racial then. Everything was black and white. Mm-hmm. So it's the idea that Black Lives Matters. It's a new term, but it's the same battle.
Right.
Going on for my whole life.
It doesn't end, man. So
it's a new slogan for the same stuff.
So then now you're a flight attendant, and
yeah, I'm a flight attendant in London, England. And when I stopped doing that, I started working for a talent agent. Okay. And they handled, they had some pretty good. There was a group called Bay City Rollers that were very popular.
Yeah, I'm a kid, so I know that group.
Yeah, so they were one of the groups that they represented. They represented a group called Marmalade, Clem Curtis and the Foundations, and an offshoot from the Bay City Rollers, which was called Kenny, and also a group called Mac and Katie Kassoon. And that's where I got my break I started a publicity division for that agency.
Mm-hmm. You started publicity.
A publicity division within that talent agency.
Got it. So you first
writing bios and trying to get media coverage because I was I had background as a writer and I could write.
Right. So you're a good writer.
School and college and everything. I worked on a student newspaper. I had poems published, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I just had that. I didn't have a lot of media contacts, but you just cold search and try to find, I'd go to magazine stands and look to find out who the editors were. And, and they gave me a little bit of a working list too, as well. There's a guy named Peter Walsh. It's called Starlight Artist. That was my beginning. Okay. And then from there, I became an editor of a magazine called Poster. And that was a pop scene magazine. We would feature pictures of our stars, and then we would write on the back of the pictures would be the editorial copy. Mm-hmm. And I put it together where I got one of the magazines that I was working at. It was one of the magazines that I was trying to get this teen group, Kenny, publicity in, and they really liked this group. And then the publishers of that magazine asked me, "Hey, we really like you. Would you be willing to come and be an editor of our magazine? We don't know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We like you. We'd like, So I went there. I started a magazine with them. They had a graphic design artist and me. Mm. So I said, well, we need to make it look like we're a bigger, staff. So if you don't mind, I'd like to make up some people. Because I was writing everything and I didn't want it to look like I was writing everything. So I started, I created like maybe 6 different people. that didn't exist to make it look like we had a
I
staff.
love
I created a magazine staff page and everything. And then
awesome.
I helped them start another magazine called Superstar.
Okay.
That was my foothold in the business. And then after living in London for 4 years, almost 4 years, I came back to the States. And my first record industry gig was at Motown Records.
Okay, so we landed Motown, right? What was that like landing in it's still at that time was the Be a Myth was the big the big deal. So tell me who was there and what were you doing for Motown?
I got hired, to be honest. When I came back, I didn't have a job. I wanted to continue writing, to be honest. I wanted to write for Rolling Stone, or I was sending out samples of my work. But everything in those days, you had to do everything on spec.
Okay.
I said, I need some money. I don't want to do it on spec.
Nice.
And I got a job working in a photomat booth, believe it or not. A really small photomat booth on Crenshaw Boulevard and Rodeo, which is right in the middle of the hood in LA. And I was working there at nights. And then I would look for a job during the day. It was like a little cubicle. I mean, every time I moved my feet, I would knock film over or something, And they used to also tell me that they were going to rob it. I mean, brothers would call up and say, "Hey, we're coming down and we're going to rob you." And I go, "Okay." Or what? I got the money, man.
Rob
There was a Pioneer Chicken next door.
Okay, exactly. Rob that.
I used to lock the door, and I'd go over and I'd call my manager. I said, "Hey, man, I just got a call that they want to rob the place. So I'm seeing the Pioneer Chicken, and I'll let you know if anything goes down." And if they showed up, or most of the time they were just threatening, and then I'd stay there for about 20 minutes, and I'd go back into the booth, and then work there. But I got hired to work as a junior publicist, a starter publicist with a guy named Bob Jones, who he handled the black music for the most part. And at that time, Motown they were the most successful independent black-owned business in the industry. Barry, he had the Four Tops, the Temptations, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, the Jacksons, Jackson 5, Rick James, the Dynamic Superiors. I mean, they had a tremendous roster.
And who did you and under that roster, within that roster, who did you work closely with? I mean, I'm sure Diana Ross was here.
I didn't really work closely with Diana Ross. There was a guy named Michael Roshkin. Michael Roshkin was the vice chairman of Motown at the time, and he took all the upper tier talent, like Stevie, Marvin Gaye, Diana, and I worked mostly with the mainstream, the black artists that were maybe not totally crossed over. I worked with the Temptations. I worked with David Ruffin. I worked with Eddie Kendricks, Junior Walker. They had Junior Walker in the All Stars. Rick James.
Good old Rick.
Yeah, that's where I met Rick, and he on his first album. That was when he was in a character. I ended up working with him for a long time afterwards, but
for a minute.
Most of the artists that I worked with that time were really frustrated because Barry did have a star cast system within the company, and if you weren't one of his pet projects, you just didn't get the same amount of attention. And so, me as a young black publicist coming in, I mean, I'd get them on the phone and trying to set up interviews for them, and they would just be ranting about how much they, and I said, guys, you can't talk like that to the media. Barry will just cut you off. You gotta I can't change. I can't affect any of those changes. But it was a great, the Commodores were just starting off, and so it was a really great way to get my start and get my feet wet in the business.
And you worked with Stevie, right?
I did get a chance to work with Stevie, not on a really what I would call a personal level, but my most famous recollection of working with Stevie was working on his his classic album, Songs in the Key of Life. And that was obviously a huge project. And we were in a marketing meeting once, and he was asking everybody to contribute, and he wanted to know what Motown was going to do for his album.
Mm-hmm.
At one point in the meeting, he goes, "Well, let me tell you what I want. I want a um, I want a mural, a billboard in Times Square that is so big and so bright that even I can see it." And he had that way of saying things that just made you. It was warm. I mean, he was very serious, but also in a funny way. He got his point across.
Right.
I mean, he wanted a billboard on, whether he could see it or not. He made his point.
He got it right. Did he get it?
Yeah, I think he did get it. Yeah. But
my favorite album.
Pardon?
That's one of my favorite. That's my first album I ever received as a gift as a kid, and it's still right. It's still one of those. It's just one of the great albums of all time.
And I learned a good lesson on that because that album had a 24-page booklet in it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a leak in the press that because albums in those days were 12 by 12 and they were shrink wrapped. So when you put 2 albums in a case, 12 by 12, folder, cardboard folder, and then you add a 24-page 12 by 12 booklet in there,
mm-hmm.
it caused a little bit of warpage.
Mm-hmm.
And so this somebody had picked up on it. And so I decided to do a story to try to develop a story to find out what percentage was the percentage of warpage that was occurring with his album. Was it really much larger than a regular album?
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that it wasn't. And I got I actually went to this guy in distribution. I asked him how many records were being, what percentage of records were coming back. Mm-hmm. And I was able to show that it really wasn't that big of an increase. It was just normal. And so I got favorable press out of it. I was able to snip that bud in the bud, just to say, no, it's not, this isn't a widespread issue. It's no more than normal. But then I got called down by the head of distribution because I had asked this guy and I didn't go to her first. Mm-hmm. And she busted my balls and just said, what are you doing media, without coming to me? You're not allowed to do any stories about my department without clearing it from me first. Mm-hmm. Even though my objective was achieved.
Right.
That was, to me, it was a plus to the label.
Right.
But there were problems working in a company where there was very there was a lot of isolation between departments, put it that way. It was hard to navigate, and I wasn't in the clique. Motown had a clique of people that had started with the company in Detroit, and I started there when the first year they moved to California, to Hollywood, and so I was a part of a new culture of employees that were coming in, but the majority, of the people that came, they moved from Detroit to California.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you talk about people that you did connect with. Even you mentioned before Rick James, and tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Rick. I almost want to say Crazy Rick, but tell us a little bit more about Rick James, the legend.
Well, Rick was very, very talented. He's one of the most talented musicians, songwriter, producers I've ever worked with. I mean, he had a gift. He was very funky. He had great ears. He had a keen sense of musicianship. His Stone City Band were smoking. They were hot. And he had a good eye for talent. I mean, he created the Mary Jane Girls. He's the one that shepherded Tina Marie's career. He produced an album with Eddie Murphy. He did quite a lot. A lot of people don't realize how much he did. But I mean, the Mary Jane Girls was a very successful group, and they had a couple of really big hits. But Rick James was also he wanted to be a superstar really, really bad, and he wasn't the most diplomatic person, and I think that worked against him. But he was flamboyant in the way that he dressed, and he was getting high all the time, and he just wanted to live that star life. And at Motown, they really didn't have anybody like Rick. Rick would walk down the hallways like he owned the place. Yeah. It didn't really go down too well. But eventually, he did get Motown to support him, and he had some really big records at Motown. Street Songs, which is probably his most famous record. And when I went out on my own, he was one of my most loyal clients. After I left Motown, I went to a company called Rogers & Cowan Public Relations, and then I started my own company. And when I started my own company, Rick was one of the first to sign on. I ended up working with Rick for about 6 years, and he was an MF kind of guy, and I would MF him back. I mean, we would have these crazy arguments, and I convinced him to speak out about MTV not, airing any black videos. He was speaking on a panel at a Billboard convention, and he spoke on that. But then I couldn't get him to shut up, and I had gotten MTV to agree to play his videos, but he wouldn't stop talking. Right. I said, we won, man. We got in the door. You're opening the door not only for yourself but for other black people, because they weren't really airing a lot of black videos back then. So I said, now we need to move on to something else. Leave them alone. Let them. We got a door open. Let's use it. But I finally, we would go headbutt on that. I go, I'm not. So
interesting that you mentioned that in terms of someone who was breaking down doors in terms of, with MTV. Prior generation, couple of generations before that, we were talking about another client of yours who you got to work with was Little Richard. And
yeah, another story real quick about Rick James. Though, so a lot of people don't understand. He gave Prince got his first major national concert tour from Rick. And during that time, Prince was just starting to take off. And him and Rick, after about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shows, they were not. Rick felt a little threatened by Prince, and they started this combative war in the media against each other that went on for quite a while. I have tons of stories about that. But
and interesting, because you've worked with so many different. I mean, you've worked with, like I said, there stars in the universe, and it's like you've almost picked off every one. But one of the people that a lot of people, there's a story that people do not know about is an event that you did. It was a fundraiser, and it was with a few very important people for a very famous photographer. You want to talk about that?
Sure. This is later on in my career. I was friendly with and worked with Muhammad Ali. A couple different times. Not on he never paid me a salary, but he came out to he knew who I was. He came and supported my events that I was doing. And I did work with him on a peace project once. But he was very loyal to a guy named Howard Bingham, and Howard Bingham was his personal photographer for his whole life. But by the time that I started working with, when I met Howard, he had already been working with Ali for, I don't know, maybe a dozen years or something. And they did, Howard decided to run for assemblyman in Los Angeles. And Ali had always promised him, if you do this, I promise I'll help you out. And so Howard called me up and he said, hey, I want to run for assemblyman, and Ali's committed to do something for him. So I was thinking about doing an exhibition boxing match we could get some celebrities and blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested? But I don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. I want you to, would you be interested in producing it? So I said, yeah, for you and Ellie, yeah, that would be fun. So I ended up working with a guy named Hamilton Cloud, who for several years was producer for the Image Awards. And he worked at NBC for a time. So the two of us worked together, and we put together a show with the boxers that Muhammad Ali was going to fight for the exhibition was Marvin Gaye, Sammy Davis Jr., and Richard Pryor. And we put it on at the Olympic Auditorium, which was a famous boxing venue in Los Angeles. It was the most famous boxing venue in Los Angeles. And so they all came out and did 3 rounds, 3 rounds with Ali. And it was each of them were funny in their own way. We got a good crowd. It was it was a very fun event. And I just wish it would have been captured on film or video. We didn't have the money to do that, but Ali was great, and Richard. I ended up working with Richard Pryor as well, and my favorite was Richard Pryor because when he got in the ring, he started talking shit immediately, and he was going up barking at Ali and talking about how he's going to kick his ass and everything, and then. When the bell rang, he sat in his chair, and he acted like his feet were glued to the mat, like he couldn't move. He said, "Man, he was worried because he said, I'm concerned that Ali might have like a flashback moment and start to think that he's really fighting. One punch will be knocked out." But they were all. Sammy Davis Jr. was funny, and it was a very, very fun event.
Ramon, come on. Like there, I mean,
yeah, there it is.
That's amazing.
That's when Richard was really, that look on his face is real. He was scared shitless.
Amazing. To be there. Thank you for that one. Leading up to a very special person. So how did you meet? Everybody wants to know. Some of us do know. How did you meet your former wife, the beautiful singer-actress Vanessa Williams?
I was walking down the street in New York. No, just kidding.
We should all be so lucky.
No, when she was Miss America, I had a client that I represented. She was an artist. She still is an artist. Her name is Phoebe Beasley. She did very colorful collages, and she was pretty popular back in the day in LA. And I had done some PR. I'd represented her, and she knew a guy named Dennis Dowdell, who was a neighbor of the Williams, and was working as an interim manager consultant for Vanessa while she was Miss America. Because one of the things was, since there had never been a black Miss America who was black, they weren't used to dealing with any black people wanting to have Miss America show up or whatever. And so when Vanessa won, she was besieged by offers from NAACP chapters and just lots of organizations that wanted to come and have her attend an event or honor her or whatever. And the parents were both school teachers, and they didn't have the time to devote to it. So they convinced Dennis, he was a lawyer for American Can, to help out and take the responsibility of trying to field some of these inquiries that was coming into the pageant. And I guess he had mentioned to her that he was building a team of professionals that would help her launch her career in entertainment business, because that's really what Vanessa wanted to do. She wanted to be in the entertainment business. She wasn't brought up in the system of pageants, and she was a sophomore at Syracuse University. So it really wasn't her goal to be Miss America. It just kind of fell in her lap. And so my friend recommended me to Dennis and said, "Boy, if you're looking for a publicist, you should meet Ramon Hervey." And so she brokered an intro. First, she asked me, was it okay to refer me to, and would I be interested? And I said, yeah, I'd be interested in a meeting. I mean, I was aware that she had won, although, to be honest, I didn't really watch Miss America pageants as a practice. But I did read the story, and I knew that she was the first one. And I told her later, the funny story was before I met her, when she had one, and before this conversation came up about meeting her, my mother invited me to attend I think it was an NAA, the Beverly Hills chapter was hosting a reception to honor Vanessa. And my mom asked me if I wanted to go to meet her. And I went, I don't think so, Mama. You go. Just tell her I said hi. I just didn't feel comfortable. So, but later, I did end up meeting Dennis. And he came. I flew to New York. I was in New York on business. I met him in New York. We had a great meeting. He said, he would love for me to meet Vanessa, but she was on the road every day at the time. And would I be willing to travel someplace to come see her? And I said, sure, just give me a couple of days notice. I'll be happy to do it. And then what happened was I didn't hear from him for several months. And then I got a call saying, he called me up and said that he needed my advice on something. And I said, okay, what is it? He goes, well, I heard a rumor that there's some pictures or some nude pictures of Vanessa are going to be published.
Right.
And I'm wondering what should I do? And I said, well, I don't, have you seen the pictures? He goes, no. I said, well, do you know if it's true? He goes, no, I don't know for sure, but it seems to be a fairly reliable source. So I said, well, don't say anything because you don't have anything to respond to. You didn't know, you don't know. So there's no point in going out and saying anything. I said, let me fish around out here, see if I can find out if there's a buzz, if anybody knows about it. And, I called a few people that I thought might have an idea. I couldn't find out anyone that could verify that it was definitely happening. And then I got a call soon, I don't know, maybe a day or so later. He said they are definitely, there is pictures. Mm-hmm. I've seen them. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to know what we should do. And I said, well, what are you going to do? I mean, the question was whether she was going to fight for her to keep her crown as Miss America, or was she going to give it up? And the pageant gave her 72 hours to make a decision. And so I was in LA, he was in New York. This was all being done by the phone. I set up a press conference. They get at the very end of the 72 hours, which was I think it was on a Monday morning, where we were going to do this press conference in New York. And that Friday, I took a red eye to New York. I met Vanessa for the first time around 7 o'clock in the morning after I got off the plane, and I drove out to her house in Millwood, New York, and it was packed. I mean, there was like over 300 media people on their front lawn, and it was crazy. It was like a zoo. And I met her, and then we started to plot, what the decision was going to be and how to handle it and what she was going to say at the press conference. And then at the same time, there was a faction. There were lawyers that were involved, and so we were, strategizing. And I was meeting all these lawyers out in Chappaqua and putting together a plan. And I crafted a speech for her to give at the at the press conference, which was I had to have input from the legal, from the lawyers. I wanted her to have input because to me this was going to be her swan song or whatever. It was going to stand the test of time, and she was going to have to stand by whatever she said. So I really felt it was important that it represented her from her heart. It had to come from her. I didn't want to manufacture or make it sound like it was a produced statement. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was put in that place of trying to balance something that was real and spoken from the heart from Vanessa, and then also something that would appease the lawyers because they were going to launch a lawsuit against Penthouse, which was the magazine that was running the pictures. And so there was a fine balance in doing all that. And that's how we first met.
And that's, wow, what an epic meeting. Like, you're like her, you were her, like, you know, there's a figure, knight in shining armor, because here you are helping her at one of, publicly, this young lady who's basically the first of her type, and this situation happens, and there you are helping her through this moment. And did love come from there? How did that translate into, move into a relationship, into you two getting together as a couple and moving forward from there?
Oh, really? You want to know that part too?
No, come on now. Come on now.
Well, I think first of all, I think she developed a trust for me.
Okay.
And her family developed a trust for me.
That's
and you know, to be honest, I wasn't. I just wanted to do her right. To be honest, that was. I wanted to do something for her that I thought needed to be done, just to give her an opportunity to move on with her life in whatever direction she was going to go in. And I wanted to do something that would present myself as a qualified Black publicist that could handle something on this magnitude, on this stage. So those are my two goals. Is I wanted to do her right, and I just wanted to be proud of what I was doing professionally. So that's where we started off, and so our trust and our friendship was based on capturing this moment and making the most out of that moment. And then as time went on, after the press conference, you know, we became friendly, and we were attracted to each other, and you know, things we started to date. And we initially, when we started dating, we kept it secret. We didn't want anybody to know.
Sure. I said, we know that wasn't going to work.
It worked for a while. It worked for a while. Not that long. Not as long as I had hoped it was going to work. But eventually, you know, we ended up dating each other for 3.5 years, something like that, before we, you know, once we got together, we stayed together. I never broke up with her until we got divorced. So our relationship spawned 3 children and 14, I mean, roughly about 14 years.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. There you go. That's, you know, any man, I've been married, that's the best we can ask, is bring forth you have such beautiful children. I've been fortunate to meet your 2 daughters, son, and they're just amazing. So
as a family, we tried to take them everywhere.
Yeah. Look at that iconic jet cover with you guys. I think everybody saw this cover.
I remember that.
We all remember it. We all remember where we were when we saw that. Vanessa Williams off the market. Look at this. You know, you guys are like, look at you, too beautiful. What a moment in time. And here we are moving forward. And moving forward, I want to, you know, talk about some of the others that you work with. And one just recently, you know, who passed. We all were very shocked and very saddened by the loss of Andrea Harrell. And so, you know, maybe talk a little bit about that, because, you know, we're talking, you said one era, and then comes Andrea Harrell, who definitely shepherded a different era, you know, in entertainment music. How was that working and being in his company, and what would you say about him?
Andre was very charismatic. He was a lover of Black people, Black music, Black art. He was just a lover of Black culture. And he was driven to try to share it with as many people as possible. He loved to party, celebrate. He loved Black elegance, Black excellence. He had a good ear for music, but he very opinionated about his ear. I met him when he was part of a rap group called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Alonzo Brown.
Right.
And somebody had recommended me to Andre. I was looking for a producer to work on a project. I can't remember who it is now, but I went downtown to meet. He had a downtown office at the time. And the first thing he tried to do was hustle me, to be honest. He had inflated his production price, and I think he thought that I was stupid or naive. And I said, Andre, we could probably do something together, but I'm not paying you that kind of money. I knew what you're worth. Right. You know, I live in LA, but I'm not, because there was back in the day, like New York and LA, there was a different mentality. New Yorkers always thought they were smarter, more street smart, whatever. And all of us LA folks, we were supposedly sitting by the pool and sipping martinis all day, which was never the case. But I ended up working with him. I don't think we ended up working together in that project, but he always respected me. We became friends. When he got his deal, he had built up Uptown Records, and he got a distribution deal with MCA Records, and it was going to be for $40 million for his label to come into the MCA family. And he asked me if I would come in and help him orchestrate the PR for that. So that was the first time that he actually paid me to work with him. But he was a big supporter of R&B Live, that I used to do. And so I worked with him then. And then when I managed Babyface, Kenny, he was partners with Kenny in his record company called New America. New America was distributed through Arista, because Kenny had moved from Sony when I first started managing him to Arista Records. And Andre had worked with Puffy through Arista. So I think Kenny felt that he would be a good ally to have within the company. He kind of knew, the ins and outs of all the executives there. So we collaborate. He was on the label side, and I was, the manager. So we worked together, and we worked on the Face to Face album together, which was the album that came out the day of 9/11. It was scheduled to be released on that morning. In fact, we did the Tonight Show. Pardon?
I was going to say, if Paul, hey Paul, you're talking about the Babyface.
Yeah, he performed. I think the clip you have is Babyface performing on the Tonight Show. That was the night before the album was going to be released, and we took a red eye from. After doing the Tonight Show, we got on a red eye. We were flying into JFK the morning that those planes went into the Twin Towers.
Oh, God.
And we got there around 7 a.m. We landed, I think, around 6-ish or something. We got into the hotel. Kenny, I think we were supposed to be in a Yves Saint Laurent fashion show because it was Fashion Week.
I was working Fashion Week.
Yeah,
I was there.
It was Fashion Week. And so we just had enough time Kenny had a brownstone on 52nd I think between second and third or first and second. And I was staying at one of the hotels on 46th Street. Maybe it was the Paramount Hotel. I can't remember. But we got in and we had about 2 hours to kill. And then I was going to go pick up Kenny at his brownstone to go to the fashion show. And while I was sitting on the bed, I was trying to say, I'm like, when you get off a red eye, you can't go to sleep right away, whatever. So I was just chilling. And then the first plane had already hit. And while I was sitting on my bed, I watched the second plane go through. And I went, oh my God, we're screwed. And then just bedlam. You couldn't get on, your phones couldn't work or whatever. And we had brought like 36 people in because we were doing the show, and we had dancers, we had tech crew. He was supposed to do a show on Monday night at the Apollo. So they were already starting to load in that morning.
Wow.
And then, the news was breaking, and if you were in New York on that day, it was surreal. If you went outside, people were running around. It was like the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
It took me 2.5 hours to get from the hotel to his apartment, which is normally like it's a 10-minute drive, 15 minutes max. Wow. And so we had to figure out what to do because we didn't know how long we were going to be stuck there. We didn't know the record label. We didn't know who was going to pay for all these people to stay there. So, and we had to get two buses. We found two buses, one from New Jersey and one from Baltimore, Maryland, to get everybody out of town because we didn't want to be stuck with the bill to cover their hotels. We didn't know, they had shut down the airports, they had shut down the bridges. They were going to shut down the bridges. So we couldn't get into this, and we couldn't get them into a hotel in the city. So they were in someplace in New Jersey, in a motel out there. And so I had to get Kenny from the city out to this hotel in New Jersey so that he could go on the bus with the rest of the crew because he didn't want to stay in New York either.
Right.
So we were able to get that done. And I think around 1 or 2 in the morning, the buses left from the hotel, and then I drove home to Chappaqua from there. But during the day, I couldn't, my kids, I couldn't reach them. I couldn't reach Vanessa,
Yeah. It was a crazy, crazy time for all of us. I was actually a producer at the time. I was with a small boutique PR firm that produced Carolina Herrera, Diane von Furstenberg, and Iman for Sephora. So I was one of the only few Black fashion show producers that was at the tents when that happened. So I remember it very well, escaping out of the situation because it was just chaos and turmoil. So I want to say to you, you've so many people that you've worked with and so many icons. We've lost a couple of friends of yours. You work with Bill Withers. I just want to give a shout out. I also want to say a shout out to a few people that have joined us: Vivian Scott Chu, Mikhail Kilgore, Tamika, Diane, I see Courtney, Elizabeth. I see Holly. Just want to say shout out to all you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Merck, thank you guys for joining us. But you work with so many people in this business, like a Bill Withers, and we see them passing. And you guys, what is it that you might say? Because that's some type of energy and knowledge that they have. Andre, they all have a certain kind of level of energy and knowledge. What might you say if someone were watching who was aspiring, wanting to be in the entertainment industry? What advice would you give them if they were deciding to enter into the business today?
Don't. It's really hard for musicians today. I feel for all the musicians and artists out there and producers and songwriters. This is a very challenging time for music, for the entertainment business. Right now we don't know when live entertainment is going to return. and where, you know, a lot of artists, their whole livelihood is based on live entertainment. I mean, we have virtual broadcast as a tool. You know, Spotify and Apple Music and, you know, Tidal are still happening, so you can have your music played. But you know, getting to your audience and touching and making that money that a lot of artists, you know, particularly artists that aren't the big artists like the Beyoncés and, you know, they and Jay-Z or Adele, or, you know, even artists that they make maybe 80% of their income is through live entertainment. So these people are really effective. In fact, you mentioned Vivian Shu. She did a series of live broadcasts to support New Jersey, the New Jersey AFMM, because he's, you know, a lot of songwriters and musicians and artists. Her and her husband Ray Chu did, I think, 4 or 5 shows to help raise funds for the Musicians Union, because it's a serious problem. But it's, you know, like everything else, I think we're gonna hopefully get through this. And I think that what I would tell young artists is they have to be prepared to work really hard and understand what you're getting yourself into. This is a branding business, and you really have to understand how to have a better feel for how to become successful in our business. Because you if you don't have knowledge, or, for example, just social media, you have to have savviness in so many areas that other artists before didn't have to. Like, you know, when I started off in the PR business, there wasn't even fax machines. You know, there was no cell phones, there was no emailing. You know, everything was done by, you know, if you had a big party or event, you would hand deliver. You would hire like a Music Express, and you would hand deliver the invitations to people. You know, so there's a lot of technical abilities for artists today that a lot of artists before them didn't have. I mean, you can put up your own video on YouTube, and in a day, millions of people can see it. You know, it wasn't available to artists. If you didn't get on MTV, or, you know, finally in the 80s, BET, it was very hard. You know, there was a lot of little regional programs that would air videos, but nothing that was national or global like it is now. So the tools are there, but I think the strategy, you have to think of effective strategy on how do you take advantage of these tremendous tools that young people have today. It's pretty unbelievable, really, the amount of access that you can have. I mean, the bigger artists, they're reaching like 6 millions and millions, billions. There are some artists that have had over 1 billion people see their video. That was not possible 20 years ago.
Right. The technology's there.
Or even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
to reach. Yeah. We're closer now with technology. Yeah. It's more accessible.
More accessible, but you got to know how to do it. You know, one of the things I'm proud of, my daughter, her group Lion Babe, and their manager put together a world tour during this pandemic, where he was able to hook up, you know, 8 or 9 markets across the country, across the world: Japan, Australia, Germany, Denmark, Holland, the UK. I don't remember all of them, but they did through Instagram Live. They were able to produce like 40-minute concerts, and they reached out, and they were able to sustain their global, you know, because they've been to some of those markets as live, and they were able to give their audience something to grasp on, and they did a great job. They, you know, they had lighting, they did different things to make it feel as live as possible. And that's, you know, so you just have to be creative. You have to use the tools that you are given to really maximize and understand that you're promoting. Your artistry is a brand, and you have to understand how to sustain your brand identity. So I think that's a real key, is that artists are no longer just considered artists, they're considered brands. If you want corporate sponsorship, brands corporate sponsors have to feel like you're bringing them some synergy that they can exploit.
Right.
So you can't just look at yourself as just, I'm this artist, and you can live in your little cubicle and just put out a record now and then. And it's a 24 hour, it's just takes up a lot of time. It's a big commitment of time.
Right. So you definitely have to, take advantage of what's available to you and maximize this moment, which is, social media and all those tools that we didn't have. But I want to take a sidestep, just very briefly, tell us, because he does the music, and we definitely covered a lot of music tonight. But you're so diverse in what you do, and you have the film side. I just want to go very quickly, there's an amazing movie that you worked with. It's an iconic film with a few of your clients. And the film is Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Can we talk about that? One of my favorite films of the 80s.
Okay. Well, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, I was involved in that film because I was managing Little Richard.
Mm-hmm.
And the director of the film was a guy named Paul Mazursky. He's a very talented, he's passed away. He's a very talented writer, producer, and director, and actor. Very affable guy, very smart. And he came up with this, it was actually a remake of a French film. But Down and Out in Beverly Hills starred Bette Midler, Nick Nolte, and Richard Dreyfuss. And when I was working at Rogers & Cowan Public Relations, I was a VP there. I was one of the publicists that worked all those accounts. So my boss was there. I worked with Bette, I worked with Nick Nolte and Richard. And during the time that this film was being conceived, they were all cold as ice. None of the three of them couldn't get arrested in the film side. Nick wasn't really working. Richard Dreyfuss had some drug and alcohol issues. I think Nick had some issues too. Bette, she had really come out of the box hard with The Rose, but then she kind of hit a wall in the film area. So here's this guy. He decides to get three kind of down and out celebrities, and he's going to put them all together in a film and try to make it work. And Richard was, not when I started working with Little Richard, he was a minister in a church, and he was living in Riverside, and he had been out of the rock and roll business per se for almost a decade, at least 8 years or 9 years. And he had a book that came out, and Paul was a huge fan of his, and Paul wanted him to be in this film, and he was going to make it work. Even though I told him, I said, I don't know if Richard can act. He goes, don't worry about it, I'll make it work. And he said, I also want to do a song so that we'll have Little Richard perform in the film. And he came up with a really great song that kind of bridged, because he was torn between, do I want to be a rock and roll star or do I want to be a minister? He wasn't sure himself of which way to go. And I helped to create a comeback for him this time, and it just only confused him even more.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a cool song, Good Gosh Almighty, which became, he performed it in the film, and became a single on the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fun film to get to work with all those guys again, and to see Richard do a film like that was it was fun. He was a character, but it worked, and Paul pulled it off, and the film was a big hit. I mean, we shot that film in 1985, I think, in May, and it came out the following January, I think, and it was very successful, and it really relaunched all three of their careers. Yeah, he was. His name was Orpheus, and in the film, his character's name was Orpheus.
Oh, right. Okay.
He played a minister in the film that lived in Beverly Hills, and he was neighbors with Richard Dreyfuss and Bette Midler. They were married. Richard Dreyfuss had a hanging business, and Nick Nolte was a homeless person who interrupts everyone's life and comes into the film that way.
That was a great movie. You mentioned Bette Midler, who's actually just talk about an all-around talent. performer, singer, and actress. Is I love that great clip of her. Did you, working with her, you work with her again, right? Did you do publicity for a show that she did?
I worked with Bette Midler. I met her first when I got to Rogers and Cowan. That was in about 77, I think 77. And she was managed at the time by a guy named Aaron Russo. And they liked me. I worked very closely with the two of them. We worked on the Rose. We worked on a bunch of stuff together. She was great. I learned so much from Bette. I feel really indebted to her because she was so diversified. I got a chance to learn television, motion pictures, her touring. We toured with like 60 people. I mean, she put on, her shows were amazing. And she had great creative. She had a guy named Barry Blatt, who was a director, who was really, really talented. She had a guy named Bob, what was Bob's last name? Really great stage designer and set designer. She had super people.
She goes.
That was from Pryor, your special. But she was a perfectionist. I worked on 2 books with her, and she was the first major white client that joined my company when I went solo.
Wow. Talk about, that's when you, that's
she could have gone to anyone. I mean, she could have gone to any of the major public relation companies in the business at that time, and she chose me. And that was really a huge boost to my business.
You know what? That says a lot about you and what you give to people, and that is you give them a really good, first off, giving them what they need, and also a safe space. They know that they're not being taken advantage of, they're getting what they need, and there's a certain level of, there's definitely an honesty that you have, and that that sustains you. That's what people are looking for. They want that sense of trust. And that's why I feel like someone like, Rick James and Little Richard, and of course, Bette Midler, people like that would come with you. Anybody would come with you for those reasons. Right. I know firsthand of the type of man that you are. I just want to say to you, that, and we're going to go to the cover. I want to put that out there. While we do a cover launch every week. I'm so excited to show his cover, because I just want to say this to you, Ramon, that, I do events. I'm an event producer here in Harlem. And when I do anything, indoors, outdoors, I can always, since we've met, I can always count on you. You're your friend. And, to me, and it was instantaneous. And, I admire you. I love your stories. We've gotten to know each other. I've gotten to know so much about you. I can't wait for your book. You're going to have your book to come out, one, that you're going to have eventually.
I'm working on it right now, actually. Yeah,
this is epic. It's
a challenge, but I'm embracing it.
Absolutely. We need to know. You have an incredible, like I always think of people, and to me, you played a major role in all of this. They need people understand they need that. And here's our cover for Ramon Hervey II, the legend of Cool Dad.
Okay, that works.
Cool. That's what a cool dad would say. That works.
But I do want to say one thing, since we're mixed Black Lives Matters movement.
Yes.
And there's a couple of things that you had mentioned that have been really important to me and the way that I approach my business.
Mm.
And the thing that I try to do with the celebrities, and I think that that I've worked with, I've been fortunate, I've been very lucky, to work with some really exceptionally talented people. But what I always tried to do was just to be honest and transparent, because I think that,
Good.
and to speak my mind. And I encourage, all young Black people that are struggling, that are, wondering how to plot their careers and all this mess that we're dealing with. I, I applaud the idea that Black people, young Black people, are speaking up for themselves, and I just want to encourage that to continue, to not be afraid. In my business, entertainment business, we get a lot of people think that managers and publicists and agents are just ass kissers. And I never wanted to be that. My goal was, I just want to be respected. And if you respect me, then I'm a good listener. I can listen as good as anybody, and I'll listen to you. And if I don't agree with you, I'm going to tell you. You don't have to agree with me though, but I want to speak my mind, because I want you to know. And I think that was when you said one of the things that was appealing to me was I wasn't afraid to fight for what I believed in. And so I would encourage, all of us to do that. This is a time where we may have a very short window to do this. Mm-hmm. So use your voice and use it wisely, and speak your mind, and make sure you can back it up. Make sure you have a plan, because I think that's where I got my respect. It wasn't just about raising my voice. It's what did I have to say? What did I have to contribute? And I spent a lot of time thinking about what I was going to say before I said it, so that it would have the most impact. And I think that we as a culture, and with the social justice organizations and everything, we need to make sure that our plan is defined and it's clear, because there's so much confusion and so much reverberation from stuff that, 3 words, Black Lives Matter, has
Mm-hmm.
People are if we said lives matter, they'd probably find something wrong with that, even if we don't say all are Black. If we just said lives matter. But having to explain that, and for people to understand that, shows you that we're in an uphill battle. Because it's not 41% of our country voted for the guy that's in the White House right now. And so there is a lot of divide, and all these things that we're doing are great. But I just wanted to say that I think this new sense of honesty and transparency has been ingrained in me since I was a kid. How I wanted to approach life, business, my Blackness, as my approach to fatherhood, being honest with my kids, letting them know that I'm an imperfect human being.
I'm with you.
Powerful.
Yeah.
So showing that you can be real with your, as a father, is also, I think, important too.
Yes, yes, yes. And this, my friend, is number 2.
Okay.
we were like, your smile, we were like, you're the first, this is our 6th cover. And when it came to you, Ramon, we had, cool hand loop, the nose smile. And then you have that, your smile just lights up a room and you just take people in. So he gave you 2 covers, because you're special in terms of like being respected. Well, there you have it. Well, there you have it, my friend. We respect you, and we wanted to just honor you and show you that you are, we are all being heard. Black Lives Matter. Black fathers matter at this time, and that just keep doing what you're doing. We love, we can't wait for all the things that are happening. Can you also tell us, maybe before we wrap up, what's next for you? What charity, what event, what we can.
Well, actually, I'm excited. I did my first crowdfunding campaign, which just started on June 8th. It's for the ASEA African American. It's an African American driven nonprofit organization. It's called the ASEA Cultural Arts Foundation. And so they have an initiative. It's the Youth Summer Employment Initiative, and they are trying to raise $50,000 to support hiring 20 teenagers, 14 to 19, for summer jobs. And they will work at a summer camp that they put on, their 14th annual summer camp. And they also do some work for the foundation. They're in their 19th year. They're very wonderful people, Jose and Inez Williams. They started this, and they've been plotting and pushing through. I've been working with them now for, I don't know, I think it's definitely over a year. Helping. They have an African American dance theater, which is a professional dance ensemble, and they do dance and drum. And then they do. They've done stuff that they were featured in Alvin Ailey's 50th anniversary show. Raymond Brown, choreographer.
Yes.
And is it Raymond Brown or Ralph Brown?
No, it's Ronald K. Brown.
Ronald K. Brown.
Yes.
So he wrote a new opera based on one of the songs that they recorded called Drum Love. That was the inspiration for his ballet that he did in as part of the Alvin Ailey 50th anniversary celebration.
Love it.
So at this city center, and then it also toured around the country. And they do in school performances. They have a community outreach program. So if you can donate as little as $5. And again, we got to help our youth. They're going to inherit this mess, and we got to give them. They need jobs, and this is a really great effort. And it's on mightycause.com. That's the fundraising platform, and you'll see their name. ASEA Cultural Arts Foundation, and how to donate. It's really.
We also put it up on a screen so people can that are watching.
Go to their website. You'll find it there.
Fantastic.
Well. So I'm very big supporter of theirs, and I'm hoping we can raise that money.
Perfect. I just want to say thank you so much for everything, for coming on our Ambassador Digital Magazine, being on our cover, gracing everyone with your life. What you've put into the culture, how you've helped with the culture, how you've helped with so much. And of course, being an amazing dad to your beautiful children, great son, and I think, when you talk about respect, you don't have to worry about that, my friend. You've done a great job, and you're definitely a role model for anybody. So anyone watching today, if you want to know how to do it, the rules haven't changed. Maybe the game has changed a little bit. Maybe we're using a different medium. But Ramon, my friend, has if anything else, has told you that class, integrity, honesty, good work ethic is timeless, my friend.
And so hone your talent so that when you get your chance, you're really there.
There you go.
I appreciate this moment with you, and it's a little longer, but we're not only friends, but I wanted to support you in your venture, and I hope this is really successful for you. And I think it's great that you're creating, a platform for people, entrepreneurs, to share their stories and help raise our communities.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And someone just put, we'll just end on this note. Thanks for the love.
All right. Same to you. Thanks for the love back.
Thank you to everyone for watching tonight.
Thanks to everyone. I didn't get to see all your names, but thanks to everyone. I know at least one of my children watch this. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you all for joining us. Remember, go to Ambassador IG, or you can follow us and subscribe to Ambassador Digital Magazine on Facebook and YouTube. And you see down here, if you want to donate, there's our Cash App and all that good stuff. And follow us. We'll be here again next week and continue as a weekly show with a new cover launch. And I appreciate everyone for coming. And please, above all else, have a wonderful weekend. Happy Juneteenth. Happy Father's Day to all the beautiful fathers out there. We support you. We love you. And above all else, stay safe and stay healthy and stay well. God bless you all. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us.